Good evening and welcome to Wednesday Bible Study. If you're tuning in from somewhere else, hi Tracy. Got a text from Tracy. She said that Ed gave her a headache, so she's staying home. Now I get a text from Tracy saying, no, I didn't say that. I'm lying. Good evening. All right, so we've been in our series, The Rest of the Story, and we covered we're continuing in Exodus. We covered the account of Moses on Mount Sinai, and we talked about the associated festival of Pentecost, or Shavuot, which is weeks. And we're going to be continuing to do that. Those of you who know the word really well, you know what I skipped. We skipped 15 through 18, jumped to 19, and we did 19 through 35. We crammed in a lot of information. And so I've been figuring out how I'm going to get the next couple weeks done in a couple weeks, and I think I got it. We're going to jump to the wilderness. Well, we're going to do Leviticus, and then we're going to jump to the wilderness wandering, which will take us back to 13 through 18, and then we're going to hop over to Numbers and jump around because we're trying to keep the study topical. I'm trying to stay on topics. And so what we looked at is the giving of the law, and we just focused on that section of Exodus, and we attached it to Acts. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. If you have not downloaded our app from wherever you are, or if you're here, we have an app for that. And there you'll find Bible study questions. You can log on to our Wi-Fi here, not there, for free, C3 Naples, I believe under the guest access, and you can access the Bible study application questions. You just type in C3 Naples, wherever it is you get your apps, and then you'll have the questions. And if you're like Tracy, who's not here right now, you'll be a good student and study them beforehand and answer all the questions so that nobody else can get a word in edgewise. So, but anyway, some people will be able to get a word in. I think we have some people in the lobby waiting for them to come in, but I'm not going to wait anymore. So let's just start with some just simple application icebreaker thing. So again, it's C3 Naples in your app store. It's all free. You'll see a Bible study prompt. So these are the Bible study questions. That's what I'm reading here because I can't remember what I wrote just a few days ago. All right, so one of the things we looked at, we talked about Aaron, and I don't want to pre-answer. Hola, ¿cómo está? I don't want to pre-answer too many of the questions. But we talked about being pressured into situations, having people kind of push us into making decisions instead of waiting on the Lord. And so that attached to the theme, even the previous Sunday, kind of went together with that. So I was trying to get you guys to think about times when maybe the world was pushing you into a decision, or somebody was pushing you into a decision that maybe you weren't ready to make. Or maybe we should have been listening to the Lord instead of listening to people. So if anyone wants to share, you can share. If you don't want to share, that's fine. If you're new, just raise your hand, and when I'm ready, I'll call on you. But if you want to share an instance or a situation you've been in, you can relate to that, where maybe you shouldn't have listened to someone, but it was like a snap decision. You just made the decision really quick. A lot of us do this as kids. You get pressured into doing something stupid. When I was a kid, I got pressured into throwing a bottle out of a bus window. I got in a lot of trouble for that. But just dumb, like, oh, go ahead and do it. And you're like, oh. You think you're going to impress your friends or whatever. So we saw a situation in this account where somebody got pressured into making a bad decision. So they made a snap decision in this account. So let's just start with some of the things here. So where did the Lord appear to Moses? And what is significant about this place? I just gave you the answer before. You know what? You should know it. You're on staff and you don't raise your hand. It's like unbelievable. Yes. Yes. You have to say, what is Mount Sinai? No. Yeah, yes. Mount Sinai. What's the yeah. It is. Right? So it attaches to what other account? How do you say raise your hand in Spanish? How do you say raise your hand? I didn't say it in Spanish. So, yeah, manos, your hand. I know that. So the burning bush, right? This is holy ground here. He says, so it is the I am account, and so it's significant that they appear there again. Mount Sinai, the Lord again appears there. What did Moses do? A lot. Doug, I'm going to need a hand. Otherwise this is just going to turn into just the circus, this place. Like it isn't. Carolee? Yes, a lot of people, when they review the account, they don't notice that he keeps going up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down the mountain. I was trying to count, I lost count. It's kind of crazy. Even to reaffirm things that he's been told before. So he goes up the mountain again, just to be told the same exact thing. And what's funny about this is, how old is he? All three of you. This is like, and you were a school teacher, this is horrible. Yeah, yes, we got to get buzzers. You ever play Jenga? The buzzer? Is it taboo? No, wait. Oh, yeah, it's taboo. Yeah, you wouldn't need a buzzer for it. No, I bring the taboo buzzer to the Jenga game, and I wait. We got to hand out like 20 buzzers. That would be awesome. How would I know who? No, never mind. All right, this is what happens here when you guys don't raise your hand. All right, so Moses complains a lot, too. He seems like he's always complaining all the time about everything. But we saw that he also, I don't know about this question. Well, he does something else a lot, so we'll get to that. I don't know if I'm going to blow one of the questions here. All right. What was the presence of the Lord like? I can see your shirt, but I can't see a hand. Go ahead, give it to me, and I'll see what happens when you're not here, Tracy. Okay, that's in Exodus 3. What about 19 and 20? Okay, you now. The earth is quaking, yes. Yes, I'll give it to you because English is a second language. So, so there's like you got to imagine all the like natural disasters in the world happening at once, right? Except like flooding or something like that. But anyway, so there's smoke. He comes in the cloud of smoke, and there's thunder, there's lightning. It's really, really loud. Now, where else do these signs appear? Carolee. That was the plagues. It's okay. So think about, you got it? Where? Yes, exactly. So it's the fulfillment of Pentecost. So I think if I didn't get here in the questions, I'll get there later. Who else in the Old Testament gets to be in the presence of the Lord? So who can be in the full presence of the Lord? Well, not really, but so the full presence, like Moses, right? So it makes his face shine and everything like that. So God appears to him, but he covers him with his hand, and he sees the back of him. Eric.
I've read a story that Moses had horns. Is that true?
Oh. I don't think so. Nothing is coming to mind here. That's nope. I don't think so. But I don't know. I don't know everything. Moses had horns? I don't think so. Not in this account. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just running through the card catalog right now. It's not coming up. I'm like, no. It's okay. Hey, well, I'm willing to entertain ideas, but there's nowhere I can think of it happening. I can give that, I give that a pretty, it's not a hard no, but it's a, So yeah, he wore a veil. Comes down off the mountain with the second tablets, and his face is radiantly glowing. What you got to pay attention to, this may be slightly tangential, but that's okay. What you got to pay attention to is when you get to places like Mark 9, and then Jesus goes up the mountain, and they have the transfiguration. So Jesus is radiant, right? He becomes like super radiant. And so this is like a fulfillment of what happened to Moses' face in the presence of the Lord. And he appears there with Moses and Elijah. Like Peter, James, and John are there, and they freak out. And it's interesting because he says, probably like almost prophesying unknowingly, Peter's like, do you want us to make some tabernacles for you, shelters? And so that's what they would do with one of the next festivals we're going to talk about, booths. He says that up there. He doesn't know what to say. He's scared. But Moses appearing is very significant, right? Because now Jesus is taking that position. His face is radiant. Also, it's really interesting that Elijah, if you're reading about him, he has this moment, and I believe it's when Jezebel is after him. They want to kill him, and so he's hiding, but he takes refuge on Mount Sinai. And then these signs appear to him as well. And so there's significance of them being there, Moses and Elijah with Jesus. It's pretty special. So pay attention. You can connect that. So Mark 9 attaches to this here. So he's going to bring the tablets down in Exodus 34. So you can kind of look at those. I can't remember the chapter. Is it 1 Kings? I can't remember where Elijah. It's in the Elijah account. You find it in there in 1 Kings. But it's very interesting. And if you're reading very carefully, it's one of those things people go right through. But he has this thing in the presence of the Lord. And it's really cool. So anyway, I blew through question 7. Who is Moses's... Oh, the other people that can go in the presence of the Lord. Do we know? I think that's what you were trying to answer. The high priest. So at first, God's like, nobody. So nobody comes on the mountain, right? And even if an animal or whatever touches, don't even touch the person, just shoot it with an arrow specifically or stone it. Like so, don't even touch the person that touches the mountain. And then God begins to make like little exceptions, and Moses is confused. They have another exchange after an up, down, up, down. And then he's like, okay, well, you can bring the priest up here. And he's like, you just said don't do that. And he's like, well, bring Aaron with you, whatever, right? So then we see that there's an actual covenant meal. I believe it's Exodus 24, where they now can come up, the 70 elders, right? And that's significant. Jesus has the 70 disciples that he sent. The 70 elders can come up a certain distance, along with Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu. I don't know, but maybe hers there, but definitely Nadab and Abihu, his sons. They come up a certain amount. It's beautiful. So amidst this like craziness, inside of it somehow is this beautiful like blue floor God is standing on, like lapis lazuli, like a gemstone, a beautiful gemstone. And they eat a meal, a covenant meal, in the presence of the Lord. But then it says, it clarifies, Moses goes the rest of the way, all the way up the mountain. So at a certain point, certain people can be up there. There's going to be another interaction with those people where God puts his spirit on them. We're going to see that in Numbers chapter 11. These people will have the Spirit of God on them or in them as a result here. So, who is Moses' assistant? He goes on the mountain with him too. Not all the way up, maybe.
Aaron.
No.
No.
His brother. His assistant. So I'll give you proof.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Nope. Go ahead.
What? You get
Joshua.
Yes, I was going to say. Very good. We're going to be looking at the Joshua account. So, all right. Can anyone name the 10 Commandments? You can do it in Spanish. I bet you do because you probably did that a lot in your church. In her church in Puerto Rico, they have Bible study after church every Sunday. So like they do church, it's probably like 2 hours long. Probably 2 hours long. They eat, and then they study the word for how long? Yeah, here, like, I go, like, over 40 minutes. People are like, like, unbelievable. Not you.
Every worship is like half an hour. Then,
Yes.
then the brief.
Yeah.
And then to pray for everyone.
Yeah. All right, so I'll help you guys along. You going to go for it?
I'm gonna try.
Yeah, try.
Thou shalt not have any other gods before me. Okay, gods.
You don't have to use, like, old fashioned.
I know.
King James Version.
Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy, honor your mother and father.
Okay, wait. Okay, so
I'm gonna go
you went here.
I know.
That's where you are. So Sabbath, honor your mother,
Murder.
father. Okay, so there we go. Hopefully you don't, well, never mind. It's a good thing you didn't get the third one first.
That's true.
Okay.
Murder, steal, covet.
Wait, murder.
Steal,
Steal.
covet.
Ooh, covet. Wait, covet. This is hard. This is really hard.
Oh, don't give false testimony.
Don't yeah, right?
In
So
the law,
we're
don't
like-
give false
I'm
witness.
lost.
Um,
Wait. This is difficult.
It's-
I feel
I don't
sick.
remember if covet is the same thing as like don't be jealous of your
That's the last thing,
neighbor's
yeah, it's all in
house.
there.
Okay.
Well, I'm not jealous. Eric,
Don't take the Lord's name in vain.
don't take the Lord's name in vain. That's it.
I mean,
Yeah. So we're missing
golden calf.
idols.
What?
Idols.
That's the first
Don't
one
make
I
no.
said.
It's the first two.
Well, then
Don't
I
make
said-
any idols and don't commit adultery.
Okay.
That's what you missed.
Oh. Sorry,
Is
Dana.
there? Do we need to have a talk? We have to have an in-office meeting.
Yeah.
She doesn't even think about that.
That's why.
You.
Oh,
You're a very good friend. All right, so we almost got it. We almost did it. I'll never do that finger thing again. So that was the first. I didn't know how to keep track of it any other way. Yes, have no other gods but me, then don't make any idols. So those are two, you kind of, you did the 9 commandments for yourself. I mean, it might be a good idea. You can combine some of them and you don't have to remember so many, I guess. Okay. So it is said that there are how many other commands and why? See,
610 or 20,
600, and you're close. 600, it's going to be 603. So there's 613 total commandments, so it is said. I have never counted. Don't have that many fingers or toes. So, yes. And why? Why?
Because they keep asking, this example, in this case, what are we doing in this case?
So,
yes.
yes.
Aren't they like?
Were you done? I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I just remember that yesterday when we were in the Bible study, we said the reason is like because we are always asking, but why? What if?
What if we're lawyers? That's why.
Well, aren't they to help you keep the initial 10 commandments? Like,
The way I described it quickly is that you can look at them like if you think of contracts, you know what I mean? You're going to see like bullet points and things like that. And then you have all the extra fine print explaining what those bullet points are all about. Right? So, or a book. You have your table of contents, there's the major, this is what we're going to talk about, this is the major idea, but then you have all the text, 10, 20, 30 pages. And so that's really what it's like. And as I thought about this years ago, I would have people go, well, it doesn't really explain like the priestly laws, but when you think about it, it's kind of correct because the priestly laws are an extension of the Sabbath. They really are when you think about it. Because, or breaking the command. So what happens if someone breaks one of these commands? It's either going to be a punishable offense by death, or they're going to have to sacrifice this kind of animal, that kind of animal, do this thing, stay out of the camp for 3 days, whatever it is. So there's all these different rules. So even it works for the priest because they relate to one of these 10 major categories, and so you get all these minor categories. Right out the gate, they start talking about building altars, and it talks about slaves and whether a slave wants to stay or not, and they'll go right into it. It'll talk about murder, and they'll say, well, what if someone gets killed by accident? is that murder? Nah, well, that one, that's cities of refuge, but if they do it intentionally, that kind of thing. And then they connect it immediately to stealing. Thou shalt not steal, right? So, and they say, well, how does murder connect to that? If it's dark and the person is in your house and they steal something from you and you kill him, are you a murderer or did you just kill him? No, you just killed him, it's okay. What if it's daytime? Now that's murder. So that's what it is. And so what you're saying is correct. It's like, well, what if? Why? Like what, all these different things. So that's basically, it's going to interweave throughout the rest of the Torah within pockets of stories, the whole thing. And it's just going to be constantly going back to all these different laws.
Are the sacrifice and rituals part of the 613 rules?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. But listen, I'm not. There's places you can go online where they give you like charts and all this stuff, but it's 613. You know what I mean? Like, I'm usually pretty good at like memorizing stuff, and I'm like, God. Yeah, I mean, we could do the tribes of Israel. I do all kinds of genealogies with you guys, but 613 is a big ask. Like, no.
To that point, it's like us as Christians, it's like, what is the purpose to memorize those? Not just as Christians, but also like, let's say we kill somebody, we have to go through United States rules, right? So it's like some things is like, it's so much, and it's like how we're gonna apply it, right? So it's like, let's focus on the main thing.
Okay, so what is the sign of this covenant? So there's a covenant, right? So it's a good deal. Remember, the people say like no less than 3 times. We will do everything the Lord has commanded 3 times. So there's a covenant, right? So this is like, just call it a deal in simple languages. What's the sign of this covenant? So they're written on. I'll tell them. We're written on. Yeah, Doug, I'm going to need a hand. I'm going to need to see a hand. I can't hear you. I just can't. Without a hand, I don't who's this? I heard some sound over there, but it wasn't working. I'm jealous of your shirt. Lucille.
Circumcision?
That is the sign of
Oh.
Genesis 17.
Noahide?
No, that's
That's the first.
the sign. So, okay, so the sign of the covenant of Noah is the rainbow. The sign of the covenant with Abraham is circumcision. That's Genesis 17. The sign of this one is the Sabbath. The Sabbath is the sign of the covenant. Yes, the Sabbath is the sign of the covenant. Now, I was telling you guys, it's talked about a lot, like a ridiculous amount. A lot goes into the Sabbath. The penalty for breaking the Sabbath is death. That is the penalty. You break the Sabbath. In other words, you work on the Sabbath, you die. There's going to be an account, I believe we get to Numbers 20, where guys picking up sticks and they stone them to death. They kill them for picking up sticks on Sabbath. So they take it very, very seriously. So let me just look here. I want to make sure I don't pre-cover anything. It's extremely serious because it is not just that weekly Sabbath. That's one thing. And so it's representative of God resting on the 7th day. So whether you believe it's literal 6-day creation or not, it doesn't matter. It's symbolic. So it's God rested, you rest too. Don't be thinking you're God. And so there's a bit in there of that. But each one of these festivals that they celebrate, they're Sabbaths. They're like a week, like say the Passover. It's a Sabbath. Besides cooking the meal, you're not supposed to work at all. And so it's connected to worship. Right? So we think of a Sabbath, and to us it's a day off, and that's it. It's like for me, and even today, like I read my Bible on the Sabbath, I pray. Because I'm a pastor, I take it on Saturday, not legalistically, but it's just the only day I can take off and be with my family. Go to school, they work, and so it's the day we have off, right? And so I study the Word on Saturday because I'm going to preach on Sunday. But most people, when they take a Sabbath, they go fishing. And that's it. And it's something for them. But you got to think these, are very religious, and sometimes religion can be good. They're very devout people, or they're supposed to be anyway. And so the Sabbath is connected with worshiping God when you think about it. Because what are you doing during the festival? So the Passover, well, do this to remember that I redeemed you out of Egypt. So you're remembering the Lord. It's an act of worship. The Passover lamb, it's an act of worship. You're sacrificing. Right? So it's super, super, super important. The main crux of why the Israelites get devastated, spoiler alert, is that they're worshiping idols. That's the main thing. It's the reason they say in the law, don't marry foreign women, because then you're going to worship their gods. It's all about worship, the whole thing. Not worshiping idols, do worship God. So the Sabbath is super important. So one of the illustrations I gave, we can do a little application here, was that think about it. Kids in Sunday school, they'll go through the Ten Commandments. And, we're not under the law. I know. I've read Galatians a few times. I get it. But the Ten Commandments are a Christian standard and have been since the very beginning. There's nobody, and I went through the list, right, that would say we should be breaking them. We shouldn't. Of course not. And they'd say, no, of course not. No, of course not. But the Sabbath is the only one. I stood up here. I gave the Ten Commandments, but I left the Sabbath out. Nobody noticed. And I was like, yeah. It's the only one we're actually prideful about breaking. People are prideful about doing it. How much do even Christians brag about how much they're working? Like, I work 80 hours a week. You know what I mean? Like, I'm awesome. How much do people brag about or passively brag about their mission work? How much do they passively want to be seen? I can think of very few, even missionaries, that aren't taking selfies with these people, that they're helping and making absolutely sure it goes on their Instagram account or whatever it is with the guise of, well, if I don't do this, how's anyone going to know? It's like, yeah, right, that's not what it's about, right? And so it goes along with that, like you need to read larger amounts of text. It's kind of like I feel like people like show up late for the Sermon on the Mount. Then they take a bathroom break when they get to Matthew 6 for a while. You know what I mean? Like, so they show up for that let your light shine, right? So they miss all the blessed who are poor, mourn, all that other stuff. The thing about murder, and the thing about hate in your heart, the adultery thing, you missed that part. And then, the lust in your heart, all that. And they show up and it's like, the city on a hill can't be hidden. Who puts a lamp under a basket? Let your works shine for everyone to see. They get up, take another bathroom break, right? And then it's like, so that God gets the glory. Chapter 6, no chapters in Jesus' sermon. But watch out. Watch out. When you give to the poor, don't even let your right hand know or your left hand know what your right hand's doing. Or, that's it. God disregards it. He says, do it in secret. Because if you do it and you boast about it, it's worthless. It's garbage. That's actually in there. So Jesus makes a point of clarifying that a lot of people miss because they like the verse of the day, and that sounds really nice, right? Same thing with judgment, chapter 7. Do not judge. That's where it starts. That's it. And scribble all the rest of the stuff out, or just keep that as the verse of the day, but judge a tree by its fruit. False teachers. So if you're in my position, judge me. Yes, judge me. You should be discerning, right? It's important. Judge church leadership. 1 Corinthians 5. We do judge people in the church. It's very important. They skip that part. So it's one of the 10 commandments that we skip. And it's really a problem because people are very prideful. And so the Sabbath helps us become humble. It teaches us that we're not God. Other people God. I've talked about this in the past with dealing in the recovery ministry or things like that. A lot of times a pastor gets in the way of God. They'll try to play God. And they do that a lot, an awful lot. Like, I got to keep my phone on all the time. Like, you're the only person that can solve this other person's problems. The only one? And God can't do it. Like, I've seen people actually surrender to God, get healed of their addiction, because everybody around them decided to stop picking up the phone. And it forced them into a position where they did this, take it. They finally got what they needed. God's the only one who can solve this. We're just vehicles of his messages and his love, and sometimes we're a helping hand, but we don't solve the problem. So taking a Sabbath teaches us that. It also gives us saying, pray. We need to hear what God is saying to us, and you can't do that with all the noise on all the time if you're doing too much busy work. You have to stop and listen to the Lord, and that was the lesson here, right? Moses, he listened to the Lord for 40 days. 40 days doing nothing but receiving, not talking, doing nothing. No food, no water, the second cycle. There's 2 cycles of 40 days that he does this. He has to get the new tablets. Goes up another 40 days. No bread, no water. Miraculous. And this teaches, I think I might have had to cut it out of my message. Satan tempts Jesus 40 days. All right, with a lot of bad snap judgments, a lot of bad ideas, giving them bad ideas. What's the first thing? I don't know, turn this stone into bread if you're the Son of God. Man doesn't live. Yeah, jump off the cliff, basically. I'll give you all the kingdoms, the 3 temptations. But what does he say? Man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. And so that's where Moses was getting his sustenance. We need to think about that. We need to think about that. So, take a day or some time and just be in the Word. Just listen to what God is saying to us. Really important. So what happens to the stone tablets and why? Okay, go ahead. I can hear you.
And the reason he did that is because they're worshiping that golden calf.
The golden calf. So we kind of pre-answer that, right? So what did Aaron do? Made the golden calf. And it's very interesting in the account. He really didn't wait. So they're like, make gods for us. And he's like, without any hesitation at all, he's like, okay, give me the earrings from your wives and your children. And I just think it's really cool that what he uses to make the calves come from the things they should be listening with. I think there's something there. You know what I mean? Like it says earrings specifically. So it's really wild. But when he's confronted about it, Moses confronts him. What does he do?
He just says they won't listen anyway. They don't care.
Yeah, he's not apologetic at all.
Right.
He's not apologetic at all. He's like, well, you know how these people are. And then he kind of makes a fib. He downplays it. He said, well, they gave me all the jewelry. I threw it in the furnace. And now pop this calf. He didn't mold it. So he removes himself from some of the responsibility, which is very, very funny. So what did Moses do to punish the people? I hear some. I know.
Made them drink the calf. Melted it, threw it in the water, and made them drink it.
And you know why? Do.
So that they can, how do I say this? Give it out.
Yeah, it turns into, right? So Moses, he burns it, grinds down the calf. You got it. It's not pastoral level yet, but it was close. Usually you use a fancy word that the kids don't know, like excrement. That's a good one. And so the adults get it, the kids don't. So yeah, he grinds it down, right, and throws it in the water, and then makes them drink it, so that these gods or this god turns into nothing but human waste, filth. That's another one you could have used, but that's right. Yeah, filth, as Paul would say, skybala. It's a bad word. That's actually in Philippians. Anyway, he does that, and then he also, well, not him alone, but 3,000 people get killed. But what did Moses do for the people?
I gave you
I think what he did was he pleaded for
Yeah.
what Doug said.
Nice.
He pleaded for the salvation for them, saying they're sinful people. And I think at this point was that the time that he said, I'll take their punishment.
There are cycles of it. And basically, at one point he says, God's basically like, I'm going to erase their names from the book. And Moses is like, okay, then erase mine. He said, no, I'm not going to erase yours, just the one who's done the evil. So what you're going to see throughout the rest of this section, even in the wanderings, there's cycles of Moses constantly interceding for the people. At a certain point, he's like, I'm done, but not yet. He goes through all these different cycles. That's where we get in Numbers 11, the 70 elders. So that's what happens there. It's going to happen there, spoiler alert. So he's going to complain, I can't do this anymore. And then he says, okay, let me put the Spirit on these 70 elders. They can help you out. Before this account, in Exodus 18, it's interesting. Jethro, his father-in-law, actually is like, are you doing everything alone? That's not good. You got to appoint sub-judges and things like that. Don't try to do everything yourself. But Moses intercedes with people. So when we look at this account in our culture and everything, and the way we're set up, we think, oh my gosh, this is really horrible. But we have to kind of put it in the right context. First, Moses intercedes. He intercedes for them. So God wants to wipe them out. So they're on the mountain. He's like, yo, Moses, you got to get your people straight. Actually, forget it. I'm going to kill them. That's it. And I'll make a you a great nation. That's it. We'll start over again. Moses says, no, don't do that. And he uses like pleading tactics. And this should remind you of Abraham and the Sodom and Gomorrah account. But one of the things is he'll use this again. He's like, well, you don't want the other nations to mock you, saying that, this didn't work out with these people, or you led the people astray. So he does kind of some lawyering and intercedes. So remember that. He interceded. Second thing is, before he does it, he said, all the people that are with the Lord, come with me. Come on my side. They don't. Right? So the Levites do. That's it, pretty much. So they're given a chance. If you're for the Lord, come with me. They're like, no, we're with the calf, essentially, is the decision they make. So the other thing is, with the Exodus, a lot of people left. I think it says like something like 600,000 men left in the Exodus account. So this is shortly thereafter. And they say probably because women and children, 2.5 million people. So it's a very large group of people. So out of that, 3,000 people, it's not like he kills everybody. Not everybody dies, clearly, if there's that many people. So put it, frame it out right. It's not good that 3,000 people die, but it's like good compared to 2.5 million people dying. We got it kind of down. And there's 3,000 people who decided not to be on the Lord's side. So it's a cleansing of this people group. If you're going to not be on the Lord's side, just a little bit of leaven spoils the whole bunch. So get them out. And so you have to think about this. These are really hard times now. They're going to be warring. They're going to be doing. So we got to be serious about this. All right. So what I did So we think we did it though. But what festival is associated with this account? Did I give it already?
Which account?
This account with the giving of the law. So what's the festival we're celebrating? Carolee?
Pentecost?
Yes. Pentecost, right? Because in Acts, the Pentecost is a fulfillment of the festival. So I'll explain it the best I can. So in Hebrew, it's like Shavuot is what it means, right? So it means weeks because it's essentially about-ish 7 weeks from the Passover. So that's how you kind of count the festival. So 7 weeks from there. Pentecost is like 50, basically. It means 50. So it's roughly 50 days after the Passover. So, you're counting out the Passover week, but starting on the Passover, boop, you get like weeks, 7 weeks, 50 days out. You've now celebrated the commemorating or the giving of the law. And so that's why it's called that, weeks. And so if you read Acts carefully, they're there for the Passover, and then the people probably just stay. So they're pilgrimage festivals. In the Bible, we're going to see it. You're going to see 3 pilgrimage festivals. You're going to see other ones. We're going to talk about the Day of Atonement. That's not one of the pilgrimage ones, though. So you have the Passover, Pentecost, and booths, and so the shelters. But that's like a harvest, like that's in the fall for our calendar. It's very tricky because they're doing things on they're not on our calendar at all. And so it's a lunar calendar. So sometimes the dates are like a little bit shifted for us. So it's really Jesus and the 70 elders, right? He sends the 70 disciples, right? Some versions say 72. We look at Septuagint, which means 70, but it's 72 elders that get that write the Greek Old Testament. So they'll round numbers. We were just talking about that today. It just happened to be in the next section of commentary on Luke's gospel. Luke says Jesus is about 30 years old. They round dates a lot. When it just happened. I had to comment on that. So it was, the Israelites are in captivity. So it'll initially say 400 years. But then other places it'll clarify, I think, to Abraham when it was given to him, like he's a prophet, right? And he prophesies that in Genesis 15 at the initiation of the covenant. And he says, your people are going to be in captivity for, I think it says 400 years. But then it clarifies later, 430 years. But it's not a big deal. That happens with dates all the time. So when you're dealing with 50 days, but really it's 49, it just, a lot of times, and especially in the ancient languages, they'll just give like 50 or about this, 70 elders, but it's 72. So dates are difficult. So anyway, those are your 3 pilgrimage festivals where they're supposed to, later they go to Jerusalem. That's the place where they're supposed to have the festivals. And so in Acts, that's what's going on, right? So you have all those people there, and they're there for the Passover, so they get dispersed, right? So after, the fall, well, so for instance with the Assyrians, after the fall of Israel, in Samaria, they get dispersed, right? So the diaspora. And then later, Judah falls, right? They get in Babylonian captivity. So the Jewish people no longer have like a place. They're just like all over the place, for a long time. And so they're adopting other languages and other things, right? So maybe they're in Greece and they're speaking that or wherever, right? And so they're coming in Acts from everywhere. So you got to imagine there's a lot of people. They're Jewish, but it mentions like Hellenistic Jews. Are they Greek Jews? Are they just regular, just Jewish people from there? They come from everywhere, and that's the significance now. They're celebrating the Passover. They probably hang out in Jerusalem. Why are you going to go travel? Traveling is very dangerous back then. You're going to go a really long way. You're not going to do that. You're just going to stay in Jerusalem for the 7 weeks or 50 days maybe. And what happens during Pentecost, that's very significant. So all those things, not all, but a lot of those things happen again, right? You fire, flames like, tongues of fire, everything happens. What do? They immediately start speaking in other people's languages, and they laugh. They say, whoa, I can understand what they're saying. Why? It's for the spread of the gospel. But that's why there are so many multicultural people there, is because that's a pilgrimage festival, and this is one of them. They have to come there. It's a real big deal. So, yes.
Why did they go there? The tabernacle was still there?
Well, okay, so we're going to learn about the tabernacle. We kind of did. We'll pick up with Bezalel, right? And he's the guy in 35. He's filled with the Spirit, selective Spirit filling. Bezalel and Aholiab, his assistant, and they start making the priestly garments, the tabernacle, the ark. So at first they get instructions, then he's going to make it, and it happens a lot. So it tells it twice. And so they have that traveling tabernacle. They're going to wander in the wilderness now for 40 years, right? They're supposed to scout out the land, whatever. They're going to wander with this tabernacle. And so that's what they worship in. And so they have like these holy places that the priest can go do the sacrifice. So it's like set up church. So it's like that. And it kind of wanders around with them. But after David, all right, he does too many raiding parties, sheds too much blood. He doesn't get to build the temple, but Solomon does, right? So Solomon builds the temple. And then that's where they worship. That's now the new tabernacle. So the tabernacle gets replaced. No. The tabernacle is destroyed at the end of 2 Kings. So right before, it's just wiped out. So the Babylonians destroy the temple during Zedekiah's time. Horrible for him. He gets taken away. His eyes get gouged out, not before they kill his sons in front of him. And they take it away. So it gets destroyed. And then you have the Ezra-Nehemiah period where they begin rebuilding things. So during Ezra-Nehemiah, so you have 70 years in Babylonian captivity, and then Cyrus, the Persian king, he actually, in a sense, worships God. It's quite interesting. And then he starts allowing them to go back, rebuild the wall, Nehemiah, rebuild the temple, start rebuilding these things. And so it's the Second Temple period. It is the Second Temple during Jesus' time. And then in 70 AD, all right, so however you're looking at this, maybe like 40 years after Jesus' crucifixion, the temple gets destroyed again, and it's never really rebuilt. But that's where they're supposed to go to worship. So the pilgrimage festivals, they're supposed to all go. So if you read Acts and look very carefully, you see that Paul hopes to get to Jerusalem for certain festivals. I believe he wants to be there for Passover. Because they're still observant Jews, even though they're Christian, and they want to get there for the festival, even though they don't have to anymore, because Jesus fulfills it. So there you go. But that's the role there. There are 3 of them, but there are other festivals, and they're important. Next week we're going to look at Atonement, Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, and it's this yearly corporate atonement for the Israelites, for the Jewish people. Very, very important. But there's some interesting details in there I want to point out. So, opening it up, any thoughts, questions, comments? It was a half hand raise. I'll give it to you.
I just think this is completely mind-boggling. Exodus and 1.5 million or something. Communicating the word or something to millions of people. Okay? I came from Detroit, all right? There's like less than 1 million people in the whole city. The city's huge. If you go to a football field, do they have like 80,000 people there? If you're in the middle of the field and you start speaking, are you going to hear? No! They don't have email and a phone. How do they do this? How do you communicate to 2 million people?
It's a fair question.
It's
It's
and
a,
then 2 million people walk across the sea? What?
it's a lot.
How long did that take? You know, it's not like, hey, this is what God said, Moses is telling people. No, it's like, you know, how does the guy at the end of the line here? And then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to tell this. Have you ever done that? You told somebody, and by the end of the line, the whole story's changed?
Yeah. Telephone.
It's like,
Well,
that is mind-boggling.
it is mind-boggling. So a couple of
Points on this. All right, so I'll take a couple pieces of it. I don't know everything, so I can't answer the whole question. One, and this is really important to remember, it's unlike telephone in a few ways. When we play telephone, and I don't know how you did it as kids, but when we did telephone, the first person is like giving the question. The second person doesn't know the question or the phrase, right? Like if you, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like in other words, that would kind of defeat the purpose, right? If the people down the line knew the sentence, it's not telephone anymore, right? Because we want to see how far off it gets by, you know, the 10th person. You see what I'm saying? So person one, Ed starts, he knows a sentence, he's going to go to me. I don't know it. Otherwise it defeats the purpose. How then can I get it wrong to see how far off we got? And so we don't know it. This is different. They know it. And back then, it's like a lot of people didn't read right. It wasn't a big thing. So oral tradition is everything. You're hearing it. And so you'll see in here, I pointed out how Moses stood up and read the law to everyone, right? He said it out loud to everyone. How they heard, I'm not sure yet. but you know, you see that in Ezra. Ezra does that. If you read the New Testament letters very carefully, you know, you'll see, I believe it's 1st, maybe and 2nd Thessalonians, definitely Colossians, where they say, you know, read this letter aloud to everyone in Colossians. And when you're done reading it here, read it in Laodicea, bring the one from Laodicea here, read that aloud. They're reading it aloud. All right, so these things are orated and then copied down. But here's the thing, like in our culture, we don't do that so much. Maybe you have like relatives that tell like the same stories over and over again at family gatherings. And I don't know about you, but mine were pretty close. The details are fairly consistent. They're fairly good. Like they're getting everything right. Whether they're exaggerated or, you know, whatever, those exaggerations are usually on point. And so you start laughing at your elders, right? When you're a kid, like, oh, he's going to tell that story again. And you get behind him and mock the words, you know, but you knew it. Right? They got it right every time. So it is said that, and it's verified, that by the time a Jewish boy, is 13 years old, he can really paraphrase through much of the first 5 books of the Bible. That's unbelievable. Pharisees, they had to be able to do the whole thing. They could sit there and just recite it. There's no TV then. There's none of the distractions we have. And if you've committed to becoming a Pharisee or somebody like that, that's what you do. So if you guys have, like, you know, you guys know me pretty well. Like I've gotten up here and just recited, you know, you've seen me do pretty large passages of Scripture. Like, you know, I know, you know, Philippians chapter 2. I can just sit here and just rattle it off. You know, how's that possible? Well, you know, you just commit yourself to memory. You know, song lyrics, you get them right every time. You know, your favorite song, you're not going to get that wrong. So that's how they're treating this. They're passing it along and they're treating it as what it is. It's sacred. And they're getting everything exactly right. They talk about that, you know, Deuteronomy, you know, 6 will talk about it. Chapter 12 will talk about it. At the beginning, I think, of Joshua will talk about it. You know, when you're walking along with your sons and daughters, you know, meditate on this, recite this stuff, say this stuff. So they're saying it and repeating it over and over and over again. So that's one thing. The other thing is this. It's interesting. If you go to the end of 19, so Moses went down to the people and told them what the Lord had said. You know, on the mountain. But it says this in chapter 20, and you read it really carefully. Chapter 20, verse 1. Then, so God's, you know, the ram's horn, everything. Then God gave the people all these instructions. Then God gave the people. So I am the Lord your God who rescued you. So, you know, they're hearing apparently the voice of the Lord. Then God gave the people. So, it doesn't necessarily say, because if you read it very carefully, Moses isn't up there right now. Last verse of 19. So Moses went down to the people and told them what the Lord said. Moses is hanging out with the people right now, because it goes immediately after, he gives these laws. The people, I told you on Sunday, they're freaking out. So when the people heard the thunder, so it ends with, don't covet. And then when the people heard the thunder and the loud blast of the ram's horn, when they saw the flashes of lightning and the smoke billowing from the mountain, they stood at a distance, trembling with fear. And then Moses said, and they said to Moses, you speak to us and we'll listen. So basically they're saying, you go up there and get the rest of the stuff and come back down. We don't want to hear anymore. So they just said that they've listened to the Lord. And they're terrified. It's just we don't want to hear this anymore. We're going to die, you see. So for at least this first 10, the people heard it. They got it from God. So, God's pretty loud. So that's part of it. The other part of it is Moses is going and getting the stuff, and then chapter 4, he comes back down and he gives them a bunch of it again. So he's doling these 613 things out, in sections, to the people. And then, of course, they're going. He has the 70 elders. They're communicating it. It's getting spread out. So maybe, the first 5 rows hears them. You know what I mean? And then it's getting spread out. But I'm going to tell you something. I read about, I think it was on the Sermon on the Mount, but moreover, Jesus was speaking to people. I thought it was really clever. I think it was in Mark chapter 3 where they get a boat for him, and he kind of goes out on the boat and teaches from the boat. And the stated reason is so that the crowds won't crush him, run him over. But when you think about it, think about not like a beach here, but it would even work here. If you've seen the beach services, you can almost hear me without the mic. We've had 800 to 1,000 people there, and you can hear me without the microphone. It's pretty amazing. So I was worried about the sound, because it carries in a very weird way, and it bounces off you can hear it at the buildings. I'm like, man, we got to stop doing this at 6 in the morning for the Easter service, because the people there are probably hungover and pretty mad. You know what I mean? It's not a good idea. But you got to think about it. A beach is like a natural amphitheater grade. You know what I mean? It kind of goes up like this, especially those kinds of beaches. It's not like Naples, right? And so the people would be sitting on the beach and then up the hill. And I've heard that voices carry, because you got to think about it. Something like the the Gettysburg Address. You were there, right? I had to do it. It is. She can take it. I only do it to the people I know who can take it. So that's Ed, that's Lucille, that's Carolee, that's Eric, because you're getting there. We're going to threaten to stone Ed one day, People are like, what? You can take it. So, but I don't know. Apparently there was a gigantic audience there. I'm thinking, he doesn't have a PA system. And they're saying they could hear him. Voices would carry. I've never done the experiment, but voices will carry. They'll actually echo. Yeah, but he's in a field. So even in a field, it's correct me if I'm wrong, it's, where they had the battle, so it's I picture a farm. I don't picture mountains. I picture a farm field, so but voices would carry. And I remember my parents, when, I was a suburbs kid, but they moved me to like a farm area. And I think it was 300 acres or something. It was big. That's big. I don't know how to scale that out for you, but it's big. It's a lot of space. It takes a long time to walk. And you could call for someone from a certain part of the field. And you grew up on a farm, didn't you?
Him in the back pasture.
Right, which is
It was far. Yeah, it took us a 5-minute run back to the house.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's because, if you've ever moved into a place and there's nothing in it, everything echoes, and then once you start filling it up with stuff, it starts absorbing it. So I wonder if that's half of it is that they're in this open space, so there's nothing to really absorb the sound except the people.
And people are quiet because there are no other noises going on. There's a lot less external noise. There's not city noises, and people know if there's one person talking and there's thousands of them, they're going to be quiet to listen.
True, and you ever hear translators? In your line of work, you probably had to deal with different translators and things, and they translate. In other words, they're doing it on the fly, but the person's able to listen. So you could have a certain group of people passing it back. Just And then you'd be surprised. You might say, oh, that would be confusing, if I had to listen to the... It's actually not, right, you've translated for me. It's actually not that hard. Like, you can do it on the fly and then remember to hear what the person's... Because the translator has to hear what the person's saying, speak, and still be listening, right, to what they're saying, because they don't often stop. Like, especially like I was thinking, like UN stuff. You know what I mean? Like so there's the meetings where the president or somebody like that will know, and so they'll say a bit, and they'll stop, and then they'll say a bit. But if I know that in headphones now. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like I've heard it happen, and I started thinking, I'm like, man, they're translating, remembering what they're talking about. So there are people with talents like that. And then the other element that we can't forget the spiritual element that's going on here. There's a spiritual element to this. This is huge. This is God. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I'm trying to paint the picture, but I don't think any one of us can understand what this might be like. It's just like biblical. You know what I mean? It's huge. Eric.
It's like Hamas when they're launching rockets. A couple of them had said it's like God's hand was throwing them off to the side. He witnessed that.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like he's just pushing the rockets right back towards us. And he said only God's hand can do that, is what he was saying. So,
Or is it Israeli defense system?
well, no. Okay. Pick on the shirt. More shirt.
Go on. Yes, I know what you're saying. There's certain things like, they don't have like a logical explanation because God just
moves. He does things that we don't understand. It's like, exactly, yes. If he wants to keep people safe, they don't need the Iron Dome or whatever it is. God will just, and we have to believe that. We have to know that this is what we're looking at here. God, read to the end. He's going to come back, and it's going to be kind of crazy. So, we have to believe that that's God. That can happen. I think you raised your hand.
So, did Moses really wait all that time to finally get his elders? Like you were talking about, like previous in Exodus when Jethro came and said, like, you don't have anybody helping you. Did he really wait? Like that, because that's a long time. I guess that he waited to get like those 70 people, but then I also think like weren't there leaders of the different tribes and stuff, or?
sorry.
But like, did he really wait all that time?
It's not a long time.
Oh, okay.
Right, so in the beginning, I think I was telling you, so remember,
Passover to Pentecost, it's like, let's just call it 50 days. All right, so it's not a long time. It's like a month and a half. All right, so what a lot of people don't understand, I hope to articulate this well, is that on Sundays that the way the books work, it's at this point, from this point in Exodus, through Leviticus, so through the rest, all the rest, so from, chapter 19 of Exodus, through the rest of Exodus, all the way to 40, through all of Leviticus, through until about Numbers 13 or 14. It's like 1 year. Yeah, it's 1 year. And then Numbers 13 or 14, through the end of Deuteronomy, 40 years. So you see what I mean? So you're getting like, the back half of Exodus, all of Leviticus, the front half-ish of Numbers, about a half of Numbers, all of that. So it's basically like the equivalent of 2 books is 1 year. Then a book and a half of Numbers, let's just call it that, and Deuteronomy is 40 years. You see? So that's how it works. So it actually happens very quickly. It is. So yeah, it's, you know what I mean? So you got to imagine like Leviticus is just like, boop, that all could be given really, really fast. That happens in a short period of time. Deuteronomy in the beginning is really just like a retelling of everything that happened in the beginning. Well, you guys just studied that, so you know. And then there are more laws, and then there's like more retelling, and then there's the blessing and curses on, Mount Ebal and all that. So it's not a long time. He's only doing 2 months, and then I don't know. I know how long it was before the 70 elders, but it's within a year. Before we get to Numbers 11, it's within a year. It's not a long time. So a lot of people don't understand that. And you're reading it thinking there's some kind of matching chronology, like it's pacing itself, but the Bible doesn't work like that. It's sometimes like this much for this much time, you know what I mean? And then this much for this much time. So So I'm trying through this series to do topical, but then help people understand kind of ish how that works. All right, so I believe to be sensitive of time, we have to wrap up. I was telling Tracy before, saying she texted me and said she couldn't be here because you gave her a headache. Yeah, I think so. She can't defend herself. Have a good night, Tracy. It's just, we'll pray for Tracy's headache. Lord, I thank you for this church, for these people, for taking the time out, and even those who take the time to tune in online. I thank you for them and their diligence into digging into your word. And we do appreciate humor. We thank you for humor, Lord. And we do pray for everyone who has their ailments. I know of at least 2 or 3 today that have reached out to me with various illnesses, and we're praying that you heal them up pretty quick. And if it does cause a little downtime to spend time in your word and with you, that would be the benefit of it. But just keep everyone safe wherever they are, and as they drive home this evening from our campus here, C3 Church. Lord, just fill them with your Spirit. Give them just a heart for people that you died for. Let us be vehicles of love and of your gospel message. We love you. We thank you. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.